All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Morelia Python Radio. And tonight, yes, we are stepping outside of the box. We are talking monitors. And it's not because I got the monitor bug, Owen. That's not why.
No, it is. It is. It is. Embrace your shame and let's move on with it, okay?
So we're doing a live stream. Every once in a while, NPR does this over on the NPR network channel, YouTube channel. But so tonight we're going to be checking out some cool monitors. I would definitely, we're going to share the screen as we go through this and look at here comes Bob Rock. He's in here.
Late.
There he is. Bob Rock's here.
Late.
So we're going to share pictures or whatever. But if you're listening to this on the audio, go over to mikesmonitors.com and you can check out all his enclosures and stuff that we're going to be talking about. Amazing, top notch. Definitely have to check it out.
Awesome.
And I just want to throw out a plug for USARC. Make sure you go, you're a member, and all that stuff, and make sure that $5 a month isn't too much to ask. Just go over, sign up. It'll well worth it with everything that's going on. It's definitely good to be informed of what they're trying to take away rights of animals and shipping and all this different stuff. So it's good to know what's going on. With that being said, let's just jump into it. We got Rob Stone is with us, aka Bob Rock.
He's over there.
That way.
That way.
There he is.
Yeah, that's Bob.
You got the chat is bumping. Everybody in the chat, how you doing? Welcome, and we're gonna talk some monitors. So welcome, Mike. How you doing? Glad to have you. And let's do it.
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks. Pleasure to meet you guys. We're kind of crossing over here, but reptiles are reptiles, man.
We're jumping into your territory, which is really weird for us.
Yeah.
Hey, I was hoping that I would fit in, but so far I'm talking to you guys. We're having a pretty good time here.
Reptiles are reptiles. It's all good. So but that's awesome. But man, you've been in this for a very, very long time. I mean, like, how long have you been keeping reptiles?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I was 5 years old, of course, before that, catching stuff in the neighborhood and ants, whatever, any kind of creature, I was drawn to. My mom, for my 5th birthday, gave me a Triungus, a 3-toed box turtle, and pretty much from my 5th birthday to now, I've had some type of bird, fish, reptile, whatever.
That's awesome.
Tarantulas, I love it all.
Everything's good. There's no real, you won't draw a line anywhere. You just take it all.
I'm not much for cats, man. I mean, forgive me, cat people, but give me one of them shaved ones, man. I like them shaved ones. Them ones that are bald. Them are pretty cool.
That's where the line is.
No dander.
Awesome.
I like
no dander. No. Nope.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome. So, I mean, we've obviously been checking out the website and stuff like that, but can you kind of give us a little bit of a brief overview of what you got like now as part of your collection?
Yeah, sure. I've been working with the Mertens, of course. I've hatched lots of Mertens.
Awesome.
I bred. I guess we can go back to the beginning. I bred black tree monitors, Prasinus, green tree, black tree cross. I did that one time. It's kind of is
that a no-no?
Yeah. Was that on purpose?
No, it was an accident. It's a funny story. So I was telling Eric that I was, into colubrids, North American desert rat snakes. I had rainbow boas, and I was breeding them. That's kind of when I went more with the breeding end of reptiles. And then, I was a concrete finisher for 30 years. So in the off season, winter here, like the Arctic tundra, I was selling at a local swap, Lee Watson's reptile swap. And I would pick up some tarantulas from a friend locally here, and I'd sell my snakes and tarantulas and stuff. Well, I made a few really cool trades, not really knowing anything about monitors. As a matter of fact, I was so green, I didn't even know. When you said monitors to me back then, I just thought Savannah and Nile monitor. And I was like, yeah, I don't want I don't want nothing to do with them. So a guy came up to me and he offered a Jobiensis, a peach throat. And this thing, it was beautiful, but I really didn't know about him. I didn't even know that something like that existed in the world at the time. So I traded him, I don't know, a rainbow boa, I believe it was. And so that's just like Eric there, man, that's when you get bit by the monitor bug, you're done.
That was it? That peach throat, and that was it?
That's it. That was it. So another guy came, and he was telling me, I mean, back then it was, you couldn't find this, like now you can get almost anything that's not, illegal to get. Yeah. He said to me, a guy wanted to trade for some spiders, and I'm like, sure. What do you got? Now this is after like a couple of weeks of doing some research on monitors. He said, I have a green tree monitor. I'm like, no, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, and I've had it since it was the size of an anole. I'm like, wow. So, he goes, come over and check it out sometime. This guy wanted to trade me this Prasinus for the Brachypelma vagans, Mexican red rump tarantula, very inexpensive. I'm like, so I go, okay. I'm thinking, no problem. I can throw you something else in on the deal too, make you happy.
Yeah.
So I go to his house, and the guy goes, I'm like, okay, he's got everything. He's got shrunken heads. He's got mummies. This guy got everything, all kinds of weird shit. So can I swear? I mean,
of course. Fuck it. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not doing something wrong. It hasn't started.
Yeah, it started. So he goes, it's over there in the 29-gallon fish tank. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm still a greenhorn, but I know a 29-gallon fish tank in a Prasinus, it ain't good. So he goes, just open the top and put your arm out. I opened the top, put my arm out. This thing scurried up my arm, and it ran and sat on my shoulder, and it just sat there. And I was like, you got a mirror, man? I want to check this thing out. So I go to a mirror, and I'm looking at it. The thing was just, it was, I named it G Monkey because it was like having a green monkey. The thing, it sat on my shoulder like a parrot. I wanted to wear a patch on my eye. That's how I felt with this thing. It starts saying, "Arr."
That's great. That's great.
So I traded the guy for that, and back then it was hard to find males, females, anything. And in the meantime, I picked up a trio of really beat up imported Bacari, black tree monitors, and in the process of breeding them, I thought I had gotten a couple of female green tree monitors, but they always turned out to be male. I mean, this is going back to where it was hard to find this stuff. Mm-hmm. So one day I'm spraying down the black tree cage, and I got G Monkey on my shoulder, and he's looking all, hey, wow, what's going on in there? And my females are cycling. My black tree females are cycling, and I know he smells it.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, go ahead, jump in there, man. Get you some. So he jumps off my shoulder. He goes in there, went right to the larger of the two females, that was it. It was game on. He locked up with her, and I've had him a while, and I know he hasn't had nothing. He's been in a 29-gallon fish tank. So I felt bad for him. I wanted to at least let him get his rocks off or whatever. So I left him in there while I was doing my work and stuff, and they kind of released. So I took him out, put him away, and over the next 2 weeks, whatever, she started really swelling up. So I'm like, wow, I wonder if G Monkey did it or if my black tree male, did his job again. And so she laid a 3-egg clutch. I stole her eggs, put them in the incubator, and I waited. Oh, geez, man, I don't know. That was
a long incubation, isn't it?
Yeah, long, almost 5 months, 6 months.
That drives me nuts.
Trust me. And then I got another story about egg incubation. So the eggs hatch and they come out green. So she's black and he's green. So I knew he got the job done. So I did that one cross. I never did it again. And of course, at that time, the community came down on me and they're like, it's unethical. And in the meantime, you got other people that are triple crossing Gouldi, Panoptis, and Flavirufus, which are, all 3 great species, but man, Flavorufus is like a Porsche, and you're mixing it with Cadillacs and, maybe like a Mustang, and you're just diluting it. So that really put it into perspective for me why things should be kept clean, because like right now in this country, if you try to find a pure Flavorufus, good luck. I guarantee you, it ain't going to happen unless some got smuggled in or whatever. But it's not going to happen, and that's a beautiful animal, man. So that's my G Monkey story.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I kind of knew where that was going the second you were like, and then he jumped in the cage. It's like, shit. I bet you he takes no time at all. It's never the hell you want.
I think I was more excited than him, though. So.
Awesome.
That's awesome. And then you said, what was the other one you said about egg incubation? If you want to hit that one, I don't know if you guys had questions. Or
so
that way.
Yeah, do you got any questions?
No, those guys are over there. So
no, go ahead. Man. Yeah.
So I bred my Mertens monitors. Of course, there's not a lot known out there about real incubation time, and so I put them in the incubator, and I'm getting clutch after clutch after clutch, and this is going on, and it's like I'm calling around, I'm asking people in Europe, I'm asking another guy in the United States who had bred them, and everybody, I was getting the answers like, well, 100 to 250 days. I'm like, wow, that's yeah. What do I got to do? Crank the heat up, lower it? I'm thinking, So at that point, I was incubating all my eggs at like 87 degrees, which I don't do anymore. I put them at 85, and just it takes a little longer, but there's not much of a difference. My success, my hatch rate success is through the roof. I lost one Mertens. I had hatched 49. I say 50 because the one pipped on its own. And, I was so excited. This was after 262 days.
Holy shit.
Yeah, when you poke your head in the incubator and you see a baby Mertens coming out,
done.
Oh, my God, yeah. I did.
For the rest of the day, I'm sitting right here, and I'm watching this.
That was after my stupid little dance I did. But, so, whatever. I got tired. I went upstairs. I come back down in the morning, and his head was gone. He went back into the egg. So I was like, yeah, man, I got a lot of eggs in the incubator. I'm cutting them open. I gotta see if he's okay. So I cut that egg open, and it died. It drowned in the egg. That would have been my 50th hatch. So, and I know, people kind of frown on cutting monitor eggs. I don't care, because I've cut 49 Merton eggs, and I have not lost one. So what I do is I just, when the pip time comes, or 262 days ish, I'll candle them and make sure that everybody's moving and everything. But I cut vertically along the top of the egg, and then I hook back around, and I make like a window. So I pop that open, and then I take a little snake probe, and I break the membrane that they're encased in. So they're like, you know what I'm talking about. They're encased. The egg is like encased in a clear egg. So I pop that and make sure that they're breathing and their tongue's flicking, they're looking out, but there's no way for them to tuck back in that egg and drown. Mm-hmm. So, and some, that their yolk sacs were, pretty significant. So I just left them in there. And then, like over the next couple days, they used up most of that egg sac. And the ones that didn't, because they moved around or whatever, any eggs like that I have, I take the hatchling out of the egg, and I let the egg sac hang through my fingers, and I just give it a quick spin, put it back in the incubator in just a shallow amount of water, and I'll come back the next day, and you can see that where the umbilicus is into the body, it's dry. So I just cut it, and they're fine. They start eating right away, and they're good to go. So I don't know how I got lucky doing that, but it's like almost like routine for me now. So I don't care what anybody says. I do what I do, and you do what you do, and we're happy. We got baby monitors. right?
Right.
Everybody's happy.
Even though it's got to be nerve-wracking after like 200 something days where you're like, and I guess I'll just spin this and hope to God it works. It's like the first couple times.
You know what? I figured what do I got to lose? He's going to tuck back in the egg.
Yeah.
I had, like I said, I probably wouldn't have been so ballsy if I didn't have so many eggs in the incubator. I mean, these things are like breeding machines. They throw eggs at me.
Damn.
That's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I mean,
it's not a bad thing. You're right.
Yeah.
And I think that too, in terms of the heat that comes for cutting eggs and all, is that so you put that out online, either you're writing it out or whatever, and people take their own interpretation or apply their own skill or lack thereof to what you're saying. And they're sort of envisioning themselves being a disaster trying to do it and it going poorly. And it's like, yeah, but I'm not a disaster. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, I have a skill and finesse with this, and that's a whole different deal than someone who's just a butcher.
Right. Well, in the same breath, like I said, I talked with other breeders and, everybody's like, no, you never cut monitor eggs. And I'm like, well, you know what? You're not sitting here looking at, I had one beautiful baby and it died because I did nothing. So I figured, and that's when I just started cutting the eggs and at least breaking that membrane so they could breathe on their own and have no chance of going back in and drowning. And then from there, it just evolved to, a couple of them popped out of the eggs and they were running around with their yolk.
Yeah.
So I knew that wasn't good, especially in the Sims. I use Sims egg boxes for everything. Mm-hmm. And, the grid on there, I don't want them to, maybe rupture it and bleed out. So I put them in another Sims container with no grit, no grade on there, just in a little bit of water. So as they're walking and moving, there's nothing for it to snag on. And then, like I said, the next day, if it's dried up near the, where the umbilicus goes into the body, I just give it a little snip. There's no blood. And literally they start feeding right away.
It's nuts.
Wow.
That's awesome. I don't know. I have a new appreciation for Mertens since we saw them over in Australia, where it was just like, they're just so badass. They're my favorite.
Those videos. I see those videos. Oh man, that impressed me.
Yeah, they're just a cool animal. And then I've had one here at one point for a while. I was babysitting for a friend. They're definitely one of those animals where it's like you don't think of them kind of like a croc monitor where it's thinking a lot, but they seem very, very intelligent and always kind of trying to figure stuff out to me.
Yeah, they're definitely smart. I mean, when I built that big habitat for them, 300-gallon pond. You don't have to keep them that way. I just wanted to, because like I was telling you, I really love, that's part of it for me, is building naturalistic enclosures, just to see behaviors and stuff. And I just feel if you don't, you're kind of cheating the animal. And to be honest with you, cheating yourself, because, man, I see so many cool behaviors. I don't have to go to Australia and snorkel with them. So
it's cheaper. Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, like I was saying, they do so much in the water. I've never caught them once copulating on. There you go. That's the big enclosure. I never caught them copulating on land anywhere. That's always in the water. I mean, they may court on land a little bit, but when he gets to her, they're in the water, and it's amazing. They do a little swim. They're rolling around on each other. It's really pretty cool. I got a lot of footage of that too. I just updated my website, so my guy is going to be adding all the videos and the podcasts like this and stuff. So it's in the works. So it'll be there soon.
That's cool. That's awesome.
So I don't know. I want to just I guess start with like your setups, because your setups are amazing. So I guess the first question would be, coming from this, because a lot of our listeners are going to be snake, oriented keepers and such, but like, is it a blanket type of, if we're talking Australian monitors, right? Is it sort of a blanket type of cage that you can go, or is it, you have to go species by species? Obviously with Mertens, you need the water and stuff like that, but
right. Yeah. It is pretty, in my case, it's pretty species specific. I mean, but I wouldn't narrow it down to like, Australian versus Philippines or African. It's all pretty much the same.
Uh-huh.
The differences would be like the size of your enclosure, types of dirt that you use for nesting, which is key to breeding monitors. You could have.
That's going to be like a quarter of the show, so you can.
The dirt.
The dirt is a quarter of the show, so
yeah, dirt.
Rob, your mic is
like your mic is on your head.
Yeah, there you go. There you are. Now you're.
There you go. Now talk.
Okay, no, we should have like the discussion of dirt should be like a quarter of the show's entire discussion. So you can do that.
You know
now.
what? It can be actually. You
Yeah.
do it.
Oh yeah, legitimately. Yeah.
Your soil. Okay, I will. Your
Yeah, man.
soil can make you or break you, and it's not going to make you or break you, but it's going to fuck your animals up. If you don't provide proper nesting for these animals, what they do is they're very intelligent animals, and they just won't lay in a place where they know it's a lost cause. So if your temperatures aren't right, your soil humidity is not right, your soil type's not right, what they do is, if you're lucky, they'll dump their eggs, they'll scatter them in the water, or just scatter them on your land area, on your soil, which is good because then you don't have an egg-bound female. But sometimes they hold them so long, they could fuse to the oviducts and they just go egg-bound, and it's not a good thing. And I know, like from back in the day, breeding some indigos, that you can aspirate the egg and work it out. You can't really do that with a monitor, I mean, I haven't tried it, so thank God I haven't had.
Not all in a single neat line. Certainly,
Yeah,
the platform doesn't suggest it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens when they're not a tube. Yeah, I mean, all right.
But you're nesting temperatures and feed is the most important things when you're dealing with monitors. You want a good quality diet. You want to provide enough food for a female to throw her into a cycle. And, and that varies too, because, some prey items, they're great, but they don't pack enough calorie to throw them into a cycle. So, I'm really heavy with quails and quail eggs. I do a lot of birds, bugs, some rodents. But for the most part, it's quail eggs. And they relish it. They love it. The quails are small. They go down easy. It's not, like a dry mouse. I'm not talking about coming.
Sure.
Yeah. It's rough going down their throat. You can see them. They really work it down. The quails, man, they gulp it down. Fish, they gulp it down. Cooked eggs, raw eggs.
Is the key like whole prey items? Is that the key with them?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Right.
Okay. You don't. I mean, way back in the beginning here, there was a guy. I'm not going to name him. He's a zoo guy. You guys all probably know him, but he started pitching this raptor diet, and yeah. And I was talking to him like, why a raptor diet, and he's like, well, it's nutritionally the same thing as a mouse. I'm like, is there a mouse shortage? I mean,
pretty sure we got mice.
There's mice. There seems to be no shortage of them. So why would you imitate it, especially when that whole bodied prey, you get turds. You start feeding them that processed mush, you're getting diarrhea, and it ain't just. I mean, they don't. If they drop a turd, they drop a turd, no problem. When they got that bird diet or whatever that stuff is in them, that turkey mush, man, they spray that shit everywhere. Now you got to clean it and smell it. It's not good for them,
Yeah.
I mean, really, literally, with monitors, if you want to get that naturalistic, take a larger quail out of your freezer, leave it out overnight, give it to them like that. It's still carrion. They're going to tear it apart.
Yeah,
but it's not going to stink. They're still getting organ meat and bone and feather and fur, whatever it may be. It's not a mush through some processing plant that Joe Blow ran a turkey through a grinder or whatever it is.
100%. Yeah, and I guess another question: do you see a different prey preferential amongst the different? And I know a lot of the stuff you're kind of just getting, maybe just restarting groups with, or just hopping into. But do you see that some of them have different preferences, both either amongst species or then within a species? I know for me, King Orem, they just don't want to eat rodents. You know, they love bugs. They don't want to eat rodents. Whereas an Acanthurus of the same size, they love it. Even Glauerdi love it. Poberensis or Sketch. You know, all these different things.
Right. Absolutely. Well, for your King Orms, if they won't eat your rodent, take a pair of scissors, cut it up.
Yeah.
Like my King Orm,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, my King Orms, yeah, they won't take like I mean, they're tiny. They won't take like even a day old, like a red pinky, you know, like a day old. Yeah. It's too much for them. But if you, along with, you know, your insects, which of course that's what they live on, but, you know, and small lizards and gecko tails and whatever in the wild, but to give them that boost to throw a female into a cycle, take some scissors and cut up a pinky. Like for my King Orms, I'll take a pinky and make 5 pieces out of one of them tiny little pinkies. Yeah, and, you know, and if you talk about preference, they go for the guts right away. They take that gut. I mean, I have gill and I that when I chop up little pinkies, I put them in a bowl, in a little, like a bowl of food dish or whatever, the lid of a deli cup, and I put a little bit of water in there with them. Man, first thing they do is they go down and they start lapping up that blood water. So from the blood water, they're licking, they're moving around, they're licking. As soon as they bump into the guts or the head or an arm, it's down. They go and they eat it up. And that really provides enough sustenance for them to throw them into a cycle. I mean, rodent insects will too, but man, that's a lot of insects. And, you know, crickets I can't stand them. They stink. I use them, but I just started, and I breed a lot of roaches too. I do all my own roaches. I have 5 species because I love my roaches as much as I love my monitors. I have death head roaches, and they are just the coolest freaking things. They got a Dracula head on their back, and they got black wings. They're just the coolest. It's like, wow, here's a roach, but you know, God says, I'm going to make the coolest roach. So he makes it. And it's got a vampire head on its back and black wings. It's just too perfect. So,
these are the feeding roaches. These are the show roaches. Like, yeah, no, I got it.
I feed them all, but yeah, the death heads get less.
Okay.
I call my roach room, I call it death row because everything goes in there. It don't come out. No.
What's that question?
So Alex had a question. Can you feed Tristis pinkies?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Like again, if you know, depending on the size of the animal, Tristis get large enough to eat small pinkies, maybe even chubbies or fuzzies. But when they're young, chop them up, man. You know what? Chop them up. Put some warm quail yolk in there, or take a day-old quail and kind of eviscerate it, and put that yolk content from the stomach on pinky, on grasshopper, on anything. I guarantee you, they're going to eat it.
Nice. Now. Is it really easy to make monitors overweight if you're not kind of monitoring their diet the proper way? Like, I know you said you got to kind of feed them to get a cycle, but if you're doing it at the wrong time or the wrong prey item, can you get a female fat fast?
Yeah, you know, but generally when the females are provided with enough calories, what they do is they throw that into egg production. So they don't really store the fat. They use it for egg production, where males, you got to be careful because males will get fat. They get big liver fat stores, and it's not, you know, it's not helpful for them, and they get lazy. They don't
breed. Yeah, I got you.
They're too lazy, you know. So yeah, that's definitely a good question. You keep your males lean for sure.
Yeah, fat males don't do shit. Got it.
Do you do any?
Take it from me. That's true.
Yeah. Do you do any kind of supplementation with what you're feeding, or is? Yep.
I use mineral with the vitamin D3. I've been using that stuff probably since they first started making it. You know, But I'm a weird guy. When I believe in something, I'm not going to change. It's worked for all this time. So I just use the mineral with vitamin D3, sprinkle it on, liberally. Females get a lot more. And I also use, I'm not real 100% sure of the name of it. It's like, it's glucosa something. It's an injection. I'll give it to my females when they're in a cycle. I'll take once a week. I'll put like one, I think it's an ml, ml into a pinky or a mouse, and just give it to them because they can't have calcium crashes and stuff like that. So, and again, you guys know, you work with live animals, shit happens.
Sure, absolutely. Okay.
100%.
Backtrack to the dirt.
Yeah.
So I want to backtrack even further for a second.
Oh, okay.
Questions all over the place. This is great. So my first question, going back to kind of your history and all that, would be, I remember you from the kingsnake.com forum days and all that. And I know that you talked to Bill and had a great conversation on lizard brain. So I checked that out. I know Eric has as well, probably Owen has too. So, we all heard that, but was there a gap? So I remember seeing you at that time, and then now you've been hot and heavy with the Mertens and all this stuff, and it was like, oh, Mike's back, but maybe he didn't go anywhere. Maybe you probably kept stuff the whole time.
Yeah, I did. I was raising 8 kids, working, and the collection, it got really, overwhelming. I had a really long drive, 2 hours one way going to work. So I kind of tapered off with my animals at that time, concentrated on raising my kids, football, cheerleading, all that stuff. And the whole time I kept, Similis, Varanus similis is one of my favorite animals, and I've never had success with them. So I figured if I'm going to cut down, I'll cut down, and I'm going to work with these so I could have enough time to concentrate on them. And I work with those over the years, and still to this day, nothing. And I want more similis, and I want to apply my knowledge now to them in hopes that I could breed them things. They are so cool. They're so beautiful. And, back then it was unheard of to have them. I don't even think they called them similis back there. Back then they called them like black and white teamers, and they really couldn't be more different. So
100%.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what the
is that the
Hey, who was that question from? You?
That's from
Scott Eiper.
Scott.
It's probably Scott.
Scott.
He's lucky he gets to play with Parentes. But,
yeah, Scott Eiper's in Australia. He gets to play with Parentes and all the other fun stuff.
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
If I had the space, and of course, if I could get them, but
yeah.
I have a close buddy here right in the area, and I've known him my whole life too, Brian Waterloo, and he does a lot with Varanus varius, and I could get him, but I just don't have the space for him, and it's weird because I would like to have him, I would like to work with him, but it's not like one of those things I got to have it, so. But Parentes, that's a different story.
That one you'll put a wing on the house. I
would have to. Yeah, I'd have to branch out into the basement a bit for them.
100%.
That'd be awesome.
So I know from that conversation that you'd had with Bill that just the timeline and the Mertens you had gotten. So I mean, Frank had Mertens here back in the late '90s and maybe creeping into the early 2000s, and you sort of saw him. I know Robin, I was working at Pro Exotics. Robin had picked up 2 of them that were kind of geriatric critters from someplace. And then in 2016, Quetzal Dwyer had sent some to Cameron. And I suspect that's where yours are from, if I'm not wrong, because Quetzal had sent a bunch of babies in June 2016 to Cameron that then got kind of sent all out and about.
Well, that could be the origin of the animals. My male and my original female came from Philip Guy in the UK, and my female at 2 years old, she was gravid, and I haven't changed anything since then. So I suspect she was a little bit too young, and she died egg bound. So now here it is. I got a beautiful male from UK. Okay, it's not like I'm getting one at the next Tinley show. So I'm panicking. I'm like, oh, I got this monitor, this big, beautiful setup. I don't have a female. What the hell? So me and my wife this shit drives me nuts. You know, to be out of balance like that, kind of.
We can all relate.
Yeah,
so, yeah. You know what I mean? When you're trying to pair something up, and it's kind of it almost looks pretty hopeless. But like I said, man, God shines on me, man, because a friend that I've known from back in the kingsnake.com days, who actually has some Mertens, and he was kind of holding this in his back pocket. I don't blame the guy, you know.
Yeah.
He goes, hey, man, he goes, I know a guy in California. He's a fish guy, and he's got a pair of Mertens, and I think he wants to sell them. I'm like, great, hook me up.
Yeah.
So I started talking with this guy, and he's a fish guy. He's a real good guy. And he's like, oh, you know, I'm like, okay, we agreed upon a price quite high. And I'm like, okay, but, you know, show me the male and show me the female. So he's showing me videos. We went through, I don't know, maybe a week, almost 2 weeks. And now I have a mature male at my house, and he's obviously a male. He's hung, man. He's packing heat. So he kept showing me these two, and this is really learned something I learned in working with these animals is more so than any other branded species I've ever worked with. There's a lot of dominance behavior amongst females, even females dominating males. So a lot of people, like this guy in particular too, he's like, oh, that's a pair. You know, here, I'll send you this video. He sent me a video, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I don't see the male. So whatever, me and my wife talked about it, and we said, we're going to, you know, we'll bite the bullet. If we get one female out of the deal, at least I don't have to work one back to normal. So I got him. Now my male, he's probably 3 foot at this point. I get these two animals from this guy. They're friggin' ginormous.
Oh no.
Girth. So, but my male, he's horny, man. So I throw them both into that nice enclosure, and the one kind of scurries off, and the one that was the male squares off with my male. And I'm like, oh shit, man, this is intense. I mean, they were walking, doing the zigzag walk at each other, and
oh, dude.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the bigger one actually dominated my male. He jumped down into the water. This other one jumped down into the water, and they climbed out on that little waterfall shelf, and the other one jumped up on my male, and it had its mouth open, and I was like, no, that ain't happening. So I figured the other one's chill, so I removed that one, and I put it in a separate cage, and my male immediately started hitting on that female that we knew was a female. So once they were locked up and everything chilled out, I went and I was checking out on the other side of the room. I was checking out this other male, and I'm looking at him. Damn, that it doesn't look like a male, man. It just doesn't look like a male. And then it just, I'm not the smartest guy. Bing, it dawned in my head. I'm like, man, I'll bet that's another female.
Oh, so if that worked out that way, that's freaking awesome.
So I called my vet up, and my vet, he's really cool. He's a dog vet, but he lets me go and use the equipment and stuff. So I bring them, all three of them in, and I x-rayed my male first because I know he's a male. I seen the pit tag and the calcified hemipenal bones. So male, put him back in a bag, take out the one that I'm almost positive is a female, put her on the x-ray machine. No bones. Okay, so I got a female. Now I'm looking at the tack, and I'm like, this is great. She goes, what? You know, didn't even know they're dog people. They didn't. She's like, okay, it's great. So I said, okay. So we x-rayed that one, 2 females. I was happy. I had 1.2.
Oh, wow.
Jesus.
And both of them just throw eggs at me. So it worked out great for me. I got blessed.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know. I haven't heard that, you know, and you retelling it here, you know, it's so awesome, but so strange to our experience. So when we saw him in the Northern Territory, the dominant male in the area was so obvious compared to all these substantially smaller, thinner females that were all sitting heavy, but and certainly there was a behavioral difference in that this male almost climbed up Owen. Owen's just standing there.
That male gave no shit.
Climb up them and check them out.
Yeah,
whereas
right in my
all
very,
very clearly much more wary than this male that was just not afraid of anything.
Yeah,
he put himself between us and the girls too. We were here, and then he came walking right in between us, and all his girls were over there. So he was definitely.
It's in a park setting. I wonder if people like maybe toss some fish or.
Oh yeah, they have to.
Yeah, and it's probably stocked or something. It's sort of like a semi. I mean, certainly they're wild, but it's they have a lot of human contact. I think the various do that a lot in on the coast because all the people down there and all that, so they kind of get the same experience. But it's definitely pretty cool.
Yeah, we got Yogi Bear that'll steal your picnic basket. Various language.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how many kid sandwiches do you think they're snatching when they ain't paying attention? Of course, they're coming right up to me. So yeah.
So we got a question here. I want to backtrack. We were talking about the dirt, right? And so here's the question from Johnny Barrett. He's just saying, so what dirt would you recommend? Is it a specific? Is it species specific, or is it a general mix that you like? Is there anything you should avoid at all cost?
There's okay. Number one thing that I made this mistake myself years ago is, and I hear people saying it a lot, but region to region, people call things different. You know what I mean? Right. So people say, and it kind of gets to me when I see it on the groups and stuff. Peat moss and sand. Well, if it's the peat moss that we get here, that is the worst idea you can do. Number one, it's super acidic. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, peat moss is like decomposed sphagnum moss.
Yeah, 100%.
It's super fine. It goes airborne easy. And years ago when I was mixing it, thinking, I was trying everything. So I'm mixing this stuff and it's just floating everywhere. And, I don't know, a few minutes later, my nose, the back of my throat, and I'm not just saying irritated, it was scorched. That acid or whatever is in that peat moss is so brutal. And I'm like, my God, if that happens to me in just a few minutes, I'm going to have my animals running around on this stuff. No. So peat moss, avoid at all costs. If you're talking about this proper peat moss, I know people call that cocoa core peat moss. So actual peat moss for your garden, forget it. Don't use it. A good mix is like, I would say like 60% dirt, 40% sand, and then you can throw a little of that cocoa fiber in there to maintain humidity. Of course, I could tell you percentages, but I don't do anything. I'm Italian, so when I cook, I don't use a tablespoon. I just throw it together.
Pinch of this, sprig of that, I throw this.
Exactly. And unfortunately, my nana ain't here no more, so I can't. I don't know if I mess up because I don't get to smack in the head no more.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so what I use is I'm weird, dude. I'm a weird guy. I've always been this way. Like, well, because having toads and stuff when I was a kid, I pick up dirt like what is that guy, Braveheart or whatever. Smell it, look at it, feel it, and I don't know how or why. I think, okay, this will be good. So when I got back in with the monitors, with the Mertens, my wife, her family owns a farm. So I'm a farm in Wisconsin, and we're driving around. It's 180 some odd acres. It's huge. And I see this pile of, he's like, oh, that's garbage. I'm like, garbage? Are you kidding me? Stop. So he stopped. This is her father. Like one of the first times I ever met the guy. Stop. Okay. So he stops. I get out. I do the Braveheart thing. I'm smelling it. I'm smelling the dirt. I'm like, he goes, you like that? I'm like, yeah, and I like it a lot. He goes, you could take it. So there had to be, I don't know, man. I got, I don't even know how many yards, maybe 25, 30 yards of this beautiful aged farm dirt. And it works great. I had a little bit of sand for like the Mertens and the the Australian species, the dwarfs.
Right.
And it works good. It's a great base. And what it is like almost like a forest floor. So it's a lot of decomposed leaves and sticks and maybe even some mulch that's, I don't know, cypress mulch that's decomposed. There's no sticks, nothing heavy in it. It's all fine. It packs real well in your hand. And to me, the smell, it just smells like beautiful earth.
Right. So it's pretty loose, but it'll pack tight. It'll hold some moisture to it, hold some shape, but it's not a rock. I remember when Robin had switched to that decomposed granite. Oh, that whole fiasco. Yeah.
I love Robin too, man. I love Robin. Robin's a great guy, man. He is.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, you used to work for him.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah. So you remember that guy Creep?
Yeah,
Creep
from way back in the day. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, way back then. But Robin, he was going to use that decomposed granite, and then in talking with him over the years with it, he said, "Yeah, it gets wet, and when it dries out, it's like cement." Yeah.
It's way too hard. But so you're doing at this point, you're adding a little bit of sand. You're making a mix. It's not just I go and I'm getting
No, I add some sand to it just because it's too foresty for the Mertens. It's too foresty for the Audatrias. But like my coming eye, my Jobiensis, they get it straight off the farm. I don't add nothing to that. Leaves. I put some leaves over the top of it.
Right.
Is it like play sand that you're mixing it with? Is that okay?
Play sand, or it's I think over around here they call it play sand or torpedo sand. So it's fine, but it's not real fine. It has almost little pebbles in it. So
it's not like totally ground up.
Not that. Yeah, it's not like silica.
It's not, Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Very cool.
Now, do you pack it in there? Like I know that I think we were talking to Mike Waterloo the one time, and he says with his
Brian Waterloo.
Why did I say Mike? Sorry, Brian Waterloo.
That's Mike.
He says he packs it in there for his, laces, like it's like almost like it's a brick that she's got to really dig and really try to get through.
Right. Well, now what's different for those, actually, the more research that everybody's doing, and Dr. David Kirshner, he's the guy who, kind of, I can remember back way in the king snake days. Oh my God, you talk about fighting and bickering, those forums. It was great, man. I loved it. I kind of tried to stay neutral, and then I kind of got on the wrong fence with somebody in particular, but whatever. I mean, I don't care about that stuff. I don't, you know what I mean? You like what I like, and can't we just get along, I guess? So, but that don't work for everybody. So, Frank had the lace, and he used to go off about how he'd done a lot of great things. Don't get me wrong, and I was never into various. And then Dr. Kirshner came along, and he lives there with these animals, and he field studies them, and he's out there with them, and he knows that they're termite mound nesters. And Frank had said that his lace females clawed the shit out of the inside of that big log he had and laid her eggs in there. And then Dr. David came on there, and he's like, "Oh my God, here's what it's trying to do." And they went back and forth about, no, it's proper. And he's like, no, it's not. And, and now after all these years, we know they dig in cement hard termite mounds. They bury them in there. The termites cover them back up, and they really don't have no way to get out of there until females come back to lay again. So those are really long incubations. It's always better to have your dirt packed rather than loosely put in there, because I don't care how good your soil is. If it's just loosely packed in there, it's going to cave in. So you kind of want to make sure everything's packed down, so when they dig a burrow, it actually holds. But yeah, the termite mound box type thing where they have to dig into it. That's great. That works for Ackies. It works for Kimberleys. It works for Pilbarensis. I would imagine anything out there in the outback,
That's cool.
Is there certain level? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on. You go on.
I was going to ask, is there a certain, how deep you make the substrate
Oh yeah, I mean
that you shoot for?
Yeah, you're not going to provide proper depth for, in a bigularis or a lace monitor or, a coming eye monitor. My tubs are 24 inches deep, and they go to the bottom and they lay their eggs down there at the bottom near the heater. And in the wild, I'm sure, depending on the season or the conditions, they'd either go deeper or shallower, depending on, rainy, not rainy, has been rainy, hasn't rained. I've had 3 clutches of successful jobiensis. And again, we used to argue all the time about this. They were shallow nesters. And I had a theory that, they're coming from, around the Sepik River, and it's wet and rainy. And so, yeah, you're not going to bury them deep, because the deeper you go, the soggier the ground's going to be,
More wet,
You want something that's more of like a drainage layer, I would suspect. I don't know for sure. But even the jobiensis that I have here now, I've gotten 3-4 clutches, and they're all shallow nesters. And it's just because I would assume they're from, a soggy rainforest area.
Right.
It makes sense. And if you got eggs, it means you're doing something right?
Yeah. I got to hatch the peach throats again. I hatched those back in, I don't even know what that was. That was so long ago. But I wrote a paper for the International Veranid Interest Group for Bob Mendak, and I got to do it again. I'm obsessed. It's like not having a female Mertens. I got to do it, and I'm getting close with this pair that I have. I've went through a few females, but this female I've had since the beginning, and she's doing real good. And I suspect she's gravid now. She's doing a lot of digging, shallow digging, of course. So I'm just hoping that I get another clutch and I can hatch them out, because you know what? A baby peach throat is freaking beautiful.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
I got some babies on my website. If anyone wants to take a look at them, they're gorgeous, man. They're beautiful.
Is it Dumerals monitors? Aren't they like those babies too? Are gorgeous.
Yeah, Dumerals babies are.
Yeah, Dumerals babies. Yeah,
they're beautiful, but give them a few months.
Yeah, right. It goes away. The peach gets.
Yeah, I understand that.
That you guys are python guys. It's like a ring python, right?
Say no more.
Oh, did I hurt you? I'm sorry.
I have one. It's like I got a ring. Yeah,
but their babies are gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Yeah, you're right. They kind of fade out a little bit.
Black. That's beautiful.
So, Mike, it was interesting, actually. My imagination, and tell me, hey, you're wrong, is that to me, the cool thing about monitors is they're sort of, you can approach them very similarly, and then it's sort of the add-ons, whether you're doing cork, you're adding for the Mertens, you're adding a big water feature, you're doing this sort of different stuff, you're where they're going to nest and what you want that soil to feel like in terms of moisture is going to be different. But they're sort of but you can do basically the same thing. Maybe it's one light versus a bank of lights, all this different stuff, but it's sort of the same thing. It's just a question of scale in its own way. And then maybe they have small preferences beyond that.
Yeah, that's true, because I just started now with Audatrias, and I've got King Gorhams that are maybe 9 inches. I'm not gonna fill up one of them 2-foot tubs. It's just too much work, and so that's really, to be honest with you, I've always loved the New Guinea stuff, croc monitors, stuff like that. They all require huge cages, even the peach throats and the Mertens. They're what I would call medium size monitors, and 8-foot cages. They take up a lot of room. It's a lot of maintenance, and so these Audatrias, I got I put them in smaller cages that I put them on wheels. I can move them myself, and with my King Gorhams, I have those. Yeah, there he is, man. Beautiful. So the King Gorhams, I keep them in a large mortar tub, and there's the Similis. I keep them in a large mortar tub. There's maybe 6, 7, 8 inches of sandy soil in there, and that's pretty sandy. And they dig down to the bottom. They lay their eggs, and they don't miss a beat. So when I designed the Glowered eye enclosure, I'm like, you know what? It's not a huge enclosure, and I learned something from the Kingorum that, as long as they have the proper nesting, deep enough, right temperature and humidity, they'll lay their eggs. So rather than going and schlepping dirt, I've been schlepping dirt for so long. I my kids do it for me now. My legs are all beat up from concrete. So I decided I'm going to go with a smaller nest box type thing. So in that glauertii enclosure, now if you go down, if the opposite side of where that animal is, there's a little rock mound. Yeah, right there. Go up a minute.
Okay.
Right here.
One more up. The next picture. No, the other way. I'm sorry. See what I mean?
Too far down.
Okay. But one more picture. No, one more.
Middle one, Eric.
Middle one.
Other way. There you go.
Okay. So now, if you could see that down there, the bottom right, you could see that little hole there. Well, that hole is my wife thinks I'm freaking crazy. I seen on Facebook a guy had a rolling file cabinet. I'm like, I have no idea what. I'm just weird. So I wanted it. So $15, I got it for, 4 years. I was raising cockroaches in it, and I wheel it around in my cages. And then I'm like, wait a minute, man, that'd be a great nest box. I don't need to wheel my roaches around. I carry them. So I put that in the cage, and it's below the bottom surface. So they actually have to go in this little crevice, just kind of like my Mertens, but of course the crevice is much smaller. So the females squeeze through this little crevice, and I got the heated box in there, packed in sandy soil, and I'm sure they're going to nest in there. I've seen a lot of breeding activity from my glauertii. They're just coming into maturity, so I'm really hopeful for them. In that picture there, you could see that he's locked up with her in that little crevice there.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Waiting on eggs, all fat and blown up, the females. So hopefully it works. I mean, I won't know if I should adjust until I get a clutch, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work.
Awesome.
So what are your ambient temps in the room, both in summer and then in winter? Because I think you're putting heat onto it, right? And then talking about the heat of the nest box, or even your subsoil if you're doing like a side under tank heating. And
Okay,
Rich, that's the same thing. Okay, very good.
Really good. Yeah, Rich is a good dude. Okay, so my room temperatures here, I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Wisconsin. Cold in the winter, hot in the summer. So I kind of do it differently. In the summer, I turn my heaters off because, of course, everything heats up a little bit. So in the summertime, my room is a comfortable 80 degrees, maybe 82, just from all the cages and lights and stuff. In the summertime, in wintertime, I run space heaters because, of course, I'm below ground and it gets, the base temperatures get really cold. So I keep it around 82 to 84 degrees. And that puts at least four or five more degrees in all my enclosures. So when my cage ambient temperatures, and a lot of people, they don't agree with it. And the only way I can describe it is, I get this advice from somebody who's in South Florida. Well, dude, South Florida is a whole different ballgame than the friggin' iceberg I live in, So my temperatures, most people think, are pretty high for ambience. Like my cool spots in my enclosures in the summertime, probably like 75, 77. In the wintertime, it's 78, 79 if they can find it, because I cook them. My room is hot. It's cooking hot. Nest box temperatures I shoot for, of course, you want a thermal gradient. So another thing that people tend to do, and this goes way back to the early days, they want to put that heat pad on the bottom of their nest box. There's only one problem with that. Being a guy up here, I know when it's hot in the summertime, your dog goes in the backyard, he digs a hole, because the deeper he goes, the cooler it gets. So it doesn't make sense that they would dig deeper for warmer temperatures. So what I, in thinking that way, I said, well, how are they going to find them temperatures if it's all the way on the bottom of a 2-foot tub? So what I do is I put them on the side of the tub. From the bottom to the top, they can go to the side and feel the heat, and then they could dig down. And as they're digging down, if it's too hot, they dig away from the wall where the heater is, and it's worked out like a charm. So I shoot for 90 against the wall, and then it ventures out to,
Sure.
whatever my cooler temperatures are, 78. So they could have choices. Choices is good.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're setting it at 90 or, putting that on the front end and then just having it range into the cool, however cool it can get.
Exactly.
They'll figure out themselves. You're basically just giving them the option to figure it out, and
they know
put them where they're supposed to. Yeah.
I let them do what they do. That's with monitors, there's no tricking them. There's no, you're not going to outsmart them. I mean, they've been doing what they do for a million years. I support a good, healthy husbandry, and they do the rest. I wish I could say there's a method, there's a formula. It's all about proper support for your animals and giving them those options. And from there, they're not dumb. They know as long as you give them the options, they'll figure it out, and they do.
Yeah, they're much more reactive than snakes, and in terms of the react and response, and if you are equally responsive to what they're telling you, then you can. That's the success that you're having. I mean, to be having the success you're having with all this different stuff, that has to be the case.
That's what I attribute it to. I attribute it to just good support for the animals and giving them the options, and they do the rest. They know what they want. So as long as you provide all that for them, which it may sound easy, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot to figure out, and placement of heaters and proper soil and food. So as long as you can get the mentality of, okay, they're opportunistic in the wild. They'll eat just about anything. So give them just about anything. Give them a wide variety. Give them a wide variety of temperatures, some really high basking temperatures, and some not so high basking temperatures. And they choose on their own, and they know what they're doing, and they do it.
So you're giving them multiple basking temperatures.
Oh yeah. I got like for when I do raise ups, I shoot for over 100. So 120 is a good, like raising up babies. That's a good temperature for them to metabolize food. Gotcha. But now when you got females that are gravid and they're trying to, build up, egg production, they like it hot. I got some basking spots, like for my Mertens, for example. Yeah, it's 150. I mean, literally, if you put your hand on that slab in my cage, you can't keep your hand on there for a few seconds. And they'll bask, maybe 20, 30 minutes or less. And they just do what they got to do, and they move on.
Right. Cool. And they'll come back an hour later and do the same thing for 5 minutes, and then they'll go away.
Yeah. They regulate something else. Yeah.
Very so cool. You, out of this, another question out of that is, do you consistently provide access to supplemental heat, or do you leave the lights on 24/7, or do you turn them off? Are you with Frank and Robin, or you're turning the lights off?
Yeah, I turn the lights off because I think the day-night cycle is probably more important than worrying about a constant heat, which they get that in the wild. It drops in the nighttime. The sun's gone, it gets a little cooler. And the reason I don't worry, kind of my formula that works for me, is because, again, I keep my ambient room temperatures very,
right.
I mean,
I think that's the difference. Is you're not dropping to 63 or something at night. Then if they're
right, I mean, they probably welcome the lights out.
They're
like, "Whoa,
thank God!"
Yeah, it gets cooking.
I have to show this real quick. I guess that's your daughter saying, "Hey, Dad."
Oh yeah, that's my firstborn. Hi, Savannah.
Very cool. You're getting a lot of love here in the chat,
dude.
man. Yeah, they're
You clearly didn't piss off enough people when the King State Forum days. You should try harder.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's really crazy. I don't know how it is in like the Morelia world or the
Same
Python
as,
world? Is it the same? You either got fans or you got haters.
If you don't have haters, you're not doing something right.
If you have some people that just absolutely hate
As
you.
long as my monitors don't hate me, you can hate me.
Exactly. I don't care about you. Yeah. The lizard's okay.
I think, well, listening to you on Lizard Brain Radio when you were on there, one of the things that I love that you said was, and you've said it during this thing, is that you're in a different spot than somebody that's in Florida. Mm. So like understanding how the animal works and adapting your environment to that animal is just, I wish that people would understand that more, understand the natural history of the animal and then try to adapt your where you're at to it.
Right. See, because across this whole great country we live in, everything varies: humidity, temperature, the barometric pressures, and it just so happens that thank the Lord, I got it figured out for in this area. Sure. Like if I was to up and move to Texas, man, I'd have to shift my whole thing because I know this wouldn't work in Texas. That's why people want a formula, and there's no way I could give it to you unless you're my neighbor. If you're my neighbor, I do what I do, and you'll most likely be successful.
So move next door to Mike, and then you'll have a chance to listen to him. Right? Yeah, there you go.
I ain't got no neighbor. I got one neighbor.
There you go. Smart.
I got a question as far as like with the dwarf monitors. Well, I'm assuming this doesn't really play into the bigger monitors, but with those dwarf monitors, are you providing like humid hides in some way? Do they need those humid hides that they have to get to? Yeah,
absolutely. Great question. Yeah, because people think Ackies there, it's a desert monitor, man. They all utilize microhabitats. I mean, Gil and I come from a scorched landscape, but what they do is they'll tuck themselves in between the bark and a dead tree where there might be I don't even know what that fibrous stuff that from a tree, and it's going to hold moisture. It's probably on the shaded side of a tree underneath the bark, so while they may bask in this deadly heat, when they get too much and they need a little bit of moisture, of course, that everything's just, their whole life is just trying to conserve moisture. Right. So what they'll do is they'll go up under that tree bark where there's some of that fibrous, tree type material, and it's moist. So that's where they get their moist hides. So don't think like it's a sidewinder, these animals, even a sidewinder.
Sidewinder's got to get out of the sun. Yeah.
I'm sure they know where to go to get a little moisture and not lose as much, moisture through their respiration, their body, their scalage, whatever, that all plays into it.
So and again, go ahead.
And again, that would vary from region to region. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So what is your approach to sort of like get that human hide going? Are you using like something for them to go into, like an actual hide, or is it like some kind of tub that you have rigged up like you have
well, like for the Mertens, that cage is cooking hot. There's a lot of water in it, so the humidity is already there. Where they lay in their lay box, that's very, very humid, not wet, but it's very humid soil. Okay. Where, like my peach throats, again, with breeding these animals too, mass. You need mass. People are like, oh, do I really got to use 24 inches of dirt? No, you don't have to, but you're not giving your animals 24 inches of choice, which is only the bare minimum of what they require. Right. So, for me, I don't do like cork tubes packed with sphagnum moss, which I'm sure would work. Right. No, I just use a mass base of moist soil. Okay. So if they want to dig, they'll go dig. That's where they'll go get their get out of the dryness.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. Okay.
Mike, you said with the whole thing of talking like just because the habitat is like 110 degrees during the day doesn't mean that that's where the animal is during the day. I mean, how much research do you put into a species before you kind of try to recreate and try to bring it into your thing? Because it seems like you're putting a lot of legwork into this stuff.
Yeah, you know what? I've done tons and tons of research. from the day I traded for that peach throat, which was, I don't know how many years ago. That's all I do. I research. I listen to smart people. Ron St. Pierre. He's smart guy. I learn a lot from him. His methods. It's a little different in Florida. I try to apply it here. I just listen to people and do my own research. And in my head, this might not be right, but it's working so far. I have like a wild imagination. So I just imagine how it would be to be there, and it goes back to my naturalistic enclosures. I try to replicate their habitat as best as I can. So probably more so than researching the animals themselves, I research habitat and where they come from. Okay. Things like that, I mean, it's like I say, if you research the animal, you're going to get so much information. If you research where they come from, you're going to understand the soil is soggy and wet. The soil is dry. There's microhabitats under rocks and in crevices. It's all different. But once you get a grasp on, or not a grasp, but once you get a curiosity as to where they come from, and you learn about where they come from, you just apply it to your animals. And of course, it's a little different in a basement. You're in a room, you're in a 8x4 cage. It's a little different, but you just apply it to the best you can. And over time, you realize, okay, I don't need to spray them that much. The soil's getting soggy. Maybe I need to add more drainage, and you figure it out.
Be open to adapt to it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that with veranids. I've noticed there's a lot of like problem solving. So you need moist soil. How moist? Okay, you play with it a little bit. You spray them, you hose them. Like my tubs on my coming eye, my abigularis, my peach throats. None of those tubs are drained. So it's kind of like a balancing act with, trying to keep the air humidity there and not make the soil soggy. It's that's why I say there's really no formula. It's kind of like what you do, and then you get a feel for it, and you just do. I just do what I do,
right?
And hopefully the animals like it.
Well, apparently they do.
You react to it and you'll act accordingly, right? That's the key point.
Yeah,
you'll
absolutely.
be reading they don't to it.
Like I got to throw out here, with water monitors, okay, peach throats. They like water. Water monitors love water. They're water monitors. And people want to give them these big water features. The only problem is, a 5-foot male coming eye. If you feed them properly, their waste load, unless you got something like the shed aquarium filtration, they are going to overload it. They're going to kick dirt in there. They're going to clog your filters. And you know what you're going to be? You're not going to be a veranid guy. You're going to be a fish filter guy. You're going to be cleaning. And so with that said, when I built that big, huge water feature for my Mertens, I knew nothing about Mertens. As far as like where they shit, I know the water monitors and the peach throats. Not only do they crap in the water, they crap in the water right after you clean it. So it doesn't make sense to have filtered water. And I used to schlep those mortar tubs in and out of cages. And now that I'm getting older, I put drains on everything. So they take a crap in there. I open up a ball valve. It goes right to my sub pump through the spaghetti strainer. And I rinse it, fill it, and I got clean water. See, that's part of it too, is you got to make your maintenance easy too, because for water monitors and these monitors that crap in their water, they kick their substrate in the water, and to filter that, you just become a fish filter cleaner. So getting back to the Mertens, I didn't know if they were going to be, water crappers or what. So I made these big elaborate filters, and here it turns out they crap on the land 95% of the time. So I got all this filtration running, and I was maintaining their because I keep fish and stuff in there with them and other things, and it's just a cool like micro habitat of a variety of fish, animals, snails, crabs.
That's so cool.
Shrimp. And you know, they just love it because they can go hunt when they want. They rarely have to hunt because I feed them so good. But I was using Marineland filters, and oh man, you talk about now. These are animals that do not crap in the water.
Okay.
You got to break down these canister filters, you change them out. You know, if you get lazy, you do it once a month, and it's just a big stinky chore. So, in doing this, my wife and her family, they own a tropical fish hatchery. They wholesale tropical fish to the pet shops in the Chicagoland area.
Nice.
So she told me that a company had approached them, and it's OASI North America. Great company, cutting state-of-the-art filtration. And I always thought, since I was a kid, because I used to keep snappers and snapping turtles and stuff like that. And, you know, you want to heat the water and your snapping turtle bites into that glass cigar and,
breaks it. Yeah,
breaks it. And hopefully it doesn't get electrocuted. Hopefully you don't get electrocuted pulling it out of there. So I always thought, man, if somebody could make a canister filter with a heater in it, and she told me about this company, OASI North America approached her. And I'm like, hey, they wouldn't happen to have a canister filter with a heater in it, would they? She goes, oh, my God, that's what they were pitching to me. I'm like, I got to have them. I need a couple. So in talking with them and you know, in talking with me, that I go on the internet a lot. And so they started sponsoring me. So they're giving me Pondovac, so it's so easy to maintain that Mertens cage. I got a Pondovac that soaks up like they're because they don't crap in the water. That nest box ledge that I keep them on, well, they crap in there. Well, I got to reach in there and pull that out. So again, here's another problem I had to figure out a solution for. So, and I love the way my Zoopoxy rocks look. So I didn't want to cover them with nothing. But that's just the way it had to be. So I put the cocoa blocks on top of that now. So when they crap, I just spot clean it. I take a scooper and pull out their turds. But my water stays nice and clean. And OASI has the canister filter with the heater in it, and it has a pre-filter. So once a week when I do a 50% water change, it's one little valve. I flip it open. I pull this. It's about 2 feet long, but it's a pre-filter. You take these little sponges off, you rinse them. I think this filter is going on like a year, 2 filters going on a year that I haven't had to break it down. Where those Marinelands, I was breaking them down, you know, if I was lazy once a month, and it's just nasty work. But this OASI with that pre-filter and the heater in there, you can't beat it, man. And people, you know, they balk at the price a little bit. Man, come and spend a week at my house, and I'll put the Marineland back on there. You maintain the Marineland, and you tell me what's worth the money.
Right.
So, you know, it's just a great product. And again, even that filter is not going to keep up with the load of a water monitor or peach throat. You know, that's just too much waste in the water.
So you recommend like smaller waters for them, or do you like? I mean, how do you give a water feature to a big animal like that?
Okay, well, I mean, my coming eye male, he's pushing 5 foot, and he's a beast. He's huge. I use a large mortar tub. Okay. They can go in there. They can swim. They're not swimming outright like my Mertens do, but they swim around. They rub their heads and they scratch and do all their shedding stuff that they have to do. They crap in the water. I open the valve drain. It drains. I fill it. It's probably about, I would say, maybe 6 gallons of water that I put in those tubs. And I don't have to pick up the tubs because of the drains. They go to the sub pump. It blows it right out my basement window, and it's beautiful.
All right. So basically, if you're going to do big monitors like that, just be prepared to plummet, or you're just asking for a lot of work.
Yeah, because you know, it's nice to have the filter and all that, but on an animal like that, there's no filter unless you got like the shed aquarium type filtration.
Okay.
You're going to overload it. It's going to ruin your water. So like my water is my Mertens water is its own environment. You know, it's bioactive water. It's a biological filtration. It's mechanical filtration. And yeah, it works real well. But again, they're not crapping in the water 100% of the time.
Man, I'm good. This is a little bit off topic, but I was looking. I just go onto your website, and of course, the Pilbarensis is right there. And yeah, man, you ain't kidding.
Oh, did I tell you? Don't look at him, man. Don't look at him.
Let me share the screen.
Yeah, they pop it up, dude. Like, what are we looking at here?
Oh, these things are beautiful.
Look at them, man.
Dude.
Oh, you get to see yours, Mike. That's super cool. I've had a half dozen, and they always just like to hide.
Really? No, mine are out. I tongue feed them, and
That's bananas. Okay.
Yeah, they come right to me. They're just, man. I always, Kimberly rocks always held like a special place for me. I never had them. I happened to get a group early last year. And then I was offered a trade for Pilbarensis, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll take some more dwarfs. When I got these things and I opened that box, I was like, oh my God, these things were just so beautiful. Their forelimbs, and just a little bit past their shoulders is just that blaze orange, like the rocks they come from. And it's beautiful. And speaking of which, now, the Kimberley rocks are like that too. In Western Australia, they got that beautiful, those rocky outcroppings that are like that orange red color rust. And so I use Zoopoxy, Polygem Zoopoxy, another great product. I mean, you could silicone cocoa fiber to the walls. You could tack orchid mulch. You could do all that stuff. Zoopoxy, you can make it look like whatever you want. You can make it look like wood, branch. I've made branches, logs, rocks, and those rocky outcroppings, and then you paint it any color you want. I mean, I got some Zoopoxy logs and stuff that you could not tell that they're fake, and so that it all depends on how you paint them too. You got to kind of have a good eye for that.
Right.
My grandmother was an artist, so I think that's where I get my eye for that stuff. So I made the Zoopoxy enclosure for the Mertens first, and of course, this is a great story. Zoopoxy, it's a little expensive, but again, you get what you pay for. This ain't silicone with mulch pressed into it. It's not going to peel. It doesn't fall off. It's made for zoo exhibits. It's made for raptors, for large cats, for Komodo dragons. This shit it does not crack. It doesn't, like you can use cement, which has so many different byproducts in it that can harm your fish and plants and animals. So I didn't want to go that route. And a friend of mine had turned me on to the Zoopoxy. And, in the beginning, I'm cheap. My wife, she's not cheap. I'm cheap. She said, buy the 10-gallon kit. I'm like, oh, man, that's a lot of money. She goes, buy the 10-gallon kit. I'm like, no, I'm going to go with a 2-gallon kit. So 7 2-gallon kits later, I should have bought the 10-gallon.
God damn it.
So, but that stuff, it started, I was just going to do that face wall that goes up to the ledge, and I was just going to do the inside of the tub because the tubs are black. And, I figured you can't see, I wouldn't see the Mertens in there. So I wanted something to lighten it up, and then I painted it that orange color. And man, that's going on almost 4 years now, and it doesn't sprawl, it doesn't crack, it doesn't warp, it moves. So like as I drain and do 50% water changes, or even sometimes, 80% if I need it. Those tubs are really flexible, the Hagen Laguna tubs. Okay. And that Zoopoxy flexes with it. It doesn't crack, and it puffs right back out. It's great stuff. Anybody interested in that Polygem Zoopoxy, hit me up. I got kits, and I can teach you how to use it. I'm about to put out a YouTube video that I'm building my Pilbarensis enclosure. I'm going to do a tutorial for it, painting it, everything. So look out for that on YouTube coming up. And again, Zoopoxy is a great, great product. I don't care if you got a tiny little Neodesha Exoterra type cage or a big monster zoo exhibit. It's great stuff.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
I'm going to be hitting you up.
Yeah, Eric's happy.
Eric will do it. Yeah.
Yes.
And so this slides right into it. I wanted to, you have such amazing enclosures, and you're working with all these things of different sizes, right? On an Odatria, particularly the small stuff, the non-Tristis or whatever. It's easy enough to do even the Pro Exotics old school 4x2x2 troughs with the acrylic lid and whatever. No worries, you're good to go. But like Mertens and stuff, that's not going to work. That's obviously not enough. So what's the pitch? What's your advice to someone like me who Mertens are my favorite from the ones we had at Pro Exotics? Those are my favorite non-Odatria, bigger than that monitor. And it's like, what do I have to do? How am I going to make this work?
Okay. Well, first of all, there's a company, I think it's called Pentair. They sell tubs like that. They're fiberglass. They don't have the volume. They're not 300 gallons. And so, of course, I wanted 300 gallons. So, and they're very expensive too. And then you got to ship them in from China. So I'm cheap, man. They're just way too expensive. So through my wife's business, I got a real good deal on the Hagen Laguna tub. See, there you can see just the tub without the window in it. So they hold water, but for Mertens, you're asking about the Mertens. Number one, they need a big water feature, and don't cheat yourself. Put a viewing window in it. Get something with a viewing window, because so much of their behaviors are done underwater. And if you don't have that window there, you got to look at it from up above, and it's like standing on the shore and like you guys were at that park. You don't really see everything. I got pictures with them swimming by with tongues coming out right next to the glass.
That's so cool.
To have a viewing window to see all their antics underwater, because they're little clowns, man. They do so much in the water, and you'd be cheating yourself if you didn't have a viewing window for underwater. All the breeding and feeding and everything. And there you go. They're locked up right there under the water.
Yeah. Underwater.
Yeah, underwater, locked up, and they'll stay there for quite a while. They'll come up, just get a little breath of air, go right back down. And just think, if I didn't have that window, I wouldn't be seeing that. So don't cheat yourself when it comes to Mertens. Have a viewing window for your water feature. Now, brings me back to that Laguna tub. That's not cheap either. And I told Karen, I'm kind of stubborn. I told my wife, I'm putting a viewing window in there. She goes, just use the tub. If you ruin it, they won't take it back. I'm like, if they ruin it, they don't have to worry about taking it back, because I'm going to bring it out in the backyard. I'm going to beat the crap out of it with a hockey. So I got the plan in my head, and I know what I'm going to do. And, I'm a crafty guy, and I just come up with solutions for problems. So I take my grinder, and I'm like, here goes. I cut a beautiful, perfect straight line. Now I'm like shaking. I'm like, okay, three more perfect straight lines to go. Okay. So I get it all cut up, pretty good, very good. And so now I'm thinking I'm going to put a Lexan window in there. And, I'm thinking like Diver Dan when I was a kid. You see that guy go underwater with that big helmet on, and there's all the rivets around it. I'm like, I'm gonna bolt it in, and I'll see that those tubs are made out of some kind of polypropylene or something. So not a lot of glues stick to that. Silicone does not stick to it, but I'm not worried about it sticking to it because I got the bolts, right? I'm worried about it just getting a good enough bead all the way around it. And when I'm talking, I'm like 5 tubes of silicone, 5 pump tubes. So I'm just looking for it to act as a gasket,
Yeah, to hold it. Yeah.
Yeah, because the bolts are going to hold it in place. So I just do it. I drilled the holes, got everything on, waited for the silicone to dry. Next day, go down there, make sure the silicone's good, start filling it up with water. So it takes a while. So I hobble back up the stairs, and I'm watching, I don't know, Jerry Springer, some stupid shit. Oh, no. And so my daughter Sarah is here. I'm like, Sarah, go down there and check the tub, see how high it is. I didn't want to overflow it. So she comes down, and when I went up, it was about half full, and everything was good, man. Everything was good. She goes, Dad, it looks like it's about 3/4 of the way up, but it's got cracks in it. I've raised 8 kids, man. My balls have been busted for 35 years, man. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, right. It's cracking. She goes, no, Dad, it is. Well, Sarah's not much of a joker. She's a joker. So I go down there and I'm thinking, okay, it's not cracked. She's, don't do this to me. I got to go down the stairs. I'm all beat up. So I go down there and I look and there's this crack and I'm watching this crack go.
Oh God.
Oh shit.
Stop the water, turn the 2-inch drain open. That thing drains and it drains really fast. So it drains. Now I'm upstairs and I'm beating myself with the hockey stick. Oh, you dumb. So now I get on the internet and I start researching Lexan. Should have probably done that first, right? But it's not too expensive. So I learned it's actually good because I kind of learned from it too. I noticed how the tub was bowing and how the glass, the Lexan was bowing. So I knew, okay, it's going to bow. I can't drill it because I don't have the proper drill. And even if you do drill, it forms micro cracks. And then with that pressure, the micro cracks turn into macro cracks. So I said, okay, I got to do this without drilling into it. So what am I going to do? So I take it all apart, go get a new piece of Lexan, 8 more tubes of silicone it on there. And now I take a 2x4 from the back wall and I make a T. So I got one coming off the back wall and then one like 3/4 of the glass. So it bows all ways, So I put it in there and I wedged it in there till it was bowing like it was 3/4 of the way full of water. And now I'm like, okay, I'm going to use Zoopoxy because Zoopoxy, when it cures, it's concrete. It's lightweight, but it's as hard as concrete. So I mixed up another 2-gallon kit, so I'm out more money. I'm happy. So I put a bead all the way around the edge of the Lexan. And, of course, I had to go in there on the tub and mush up the surface with a grinder to just ensure everything would stick. The Zoopoxy sticks to almost anything. So the next morning, I go down there. The Zoopoxy's cured. The silicone's cured. So I start filling it up with water. I leave the tea in. I start filling it up with the water. The water gets high enough to where the tea actually floated off. So it bowed out a little bit more. Okay. And it's been running like that almost 4 years now. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'd be nervous in that, like, okay, here we go. Like, yeah.
And I was. I'm cheap, like I said. So I went kind of thin with the Zoopoxy in one area, and I suspect one of my Mertens had put his finger on there, his talon, and it poked through the Zoopoxy and into the silicone. So I developed a small leak. So what I did was I put Zoopoxy sells another product. It's 618 epoxy. It's a paint-on type, like a marine, like to fix your boat with,
Okay, yeah.
So I painted a layer of that on there. I put strips of fiberglass cloth and then painted some more of that Zoopoxy 618 on there. It's been running. It's perfect. No leaks, no runs, no hits, no errors. It's all good.
Wow.
It's all good.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying
to pull up. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, okay. So in terms of space, I saw on the website, right, that you have them in, what is it, 6x4x8, right? In terms of a trio that you have going in there, what's your recommendation for folks? Just, I think one thing is that you're underselling how crafty and great you are in terms of making stuff and an insight into how you're going to do all this stuff. I think you're way short selling that, to be honest with you. That's my first reaction.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Well, that cage is 8 feet long. It's 4 feet wide and it's 6 feet tall, but it's on a platform. So I just call it 6 foot. So 6 foot. That's housing an adult trio. So, if you had a lone animal, you could probably get away with, here's the thing. It's no matter even if you had one, if I had one, I'd still have a big water feature like that. So
Right.
if you're using a tub that's 5 feet long, 4 feet wide, and 2 feet deep, I mean, you might as well just go the rest of the way. I try to do things simple. So that water feature tub and the other tub came out to 8 feet perfect. Well, now I don't have to cut an 8-foot sheet of plywood. So it just all works out. I try to do things that way, what's easiest to build. So
Right.
I would recommend, like, if you're really serious and you want to breed Mertens, I would go no less than what I have.
Gotcha.
If you had a lone animal, you could probably get away with, maybe something like a 90-gallon fish tank in a wooden enclosure, with the front of the wood cut out so you can see the tank. I got a customer, he bought a couple off of me, and that's what he's done. So I've seen some very creative things out there along that lines too. Also, a friend of mine, Steve Sandin, he built one almost similar to mine, but where my platform is up like that, he has a trough to the side. So his land area and his water level are the same, where my water level is lower than where my nest box is, or my land area.
Okay.
But again, if anybody wants to know a little bit about building enclosures and stuff, there's a great Facebook group that me and Steve started. Actually, Steve started it. I'm kind of like riding in his coattails. I mean, we're buddies. It's called Polygem Zoopoxy Vivarium Construction. Go there. I'm an admin. I'll let you in. And man, so many great builders and so many great ideas. And it's wonderful. It's actually pretty cool. I still get ideas and inspiration and, painting methods to make your rocks look more realistic. It's really a good spot.
That's cool.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
So you're keeping that group together all the time, right? So how does it balance, like, the female using the nest box? I mean, how does that work?
The competition?
Well, with the females,
very carefully.
Yeah. The females, though, what they'll do is, of course, I kind of got that down to a science now. So when they're gravid, I know they're gravid. And when I built that thing, I built it to where the little, if you ever noticed on the cage, that landmass, there's like a crack in the rock. It looks like a crack in a rock. Well, I made that a real tight spot. So the females go in there for nesting. The male, he don't even want to try to squeeze in there. It's too much effort for him to go in there for nothing. Because trust me, those eggs don't sit long. I usually am sitting there, looking at them, and right. I wait for her to poke her head up, and I say, "It's it." Yeah, and it's really crazy. My Mertens, my female coming eye, my jobiensis, my abigularis. Man, I dig their eggs while they're sitting right next to me. And if the male comes, they'll shoot a male out of there, but they don't never bother with me. Now, my black trees, on the other hand, that was a different story. That little tiny lizard, he didn't care about the hairy monkey, man. He wanted out of that nest box. But so far, so good. I mean, I look at my female coming, and I'm like, please leave me alone. And she just watches me. She sits there and watches me. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Okay. So they're never laying at the same time then, right?
Well, yeah, they actually have.
Okay.
It's just a matter of like, it's not like they're both in there at the same time.
Sure.
Out there for clutch, and then the next day or 2 days. But they both go in there, and they before they deposit their eggs, they're checking it out. They want to know where the temperatures are. They want to know what, if the humidity is good. They look for a spot prior to laying their eggs. So when I see them start digging any of them, really, I know that they're gravid and they're going to be depositing their eggs soon, usually within, I don't know, a week or two.
Okay.
Now, do they follow like a cycle, like, snake wise, or is it just, whenever they're ready and feeling it, they go for it?
If you provide them with a time of plenty,
yeah,
they just keep going. I mean, I have not,
Right on.
Maybe it's not good. You can overbreed them, I'm sure. So there are times when I'll cut back on a female's food, just so they won't throw into a cycle. And then, there's other times that I want more eggs. So
Right.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm not going to stop what ain't broken. You know what I mean? As long as everybody's good and healthy and they don't seem to be worse for the wear, I just let them keep going.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So while we're on that topic, it's always the controversial question. I mean, going back 25, 30 years with monitors, right, is whether you're keeping them in a perpetual group or you pull them separate and then you're putting them back together. And if that varies by species, particular animals, all this different stuff. So what's your take on that? Obviously with these Mertens, you're keeping them together. What do you, but then I've heard with other stuff, you're watching them and you're saying, oh, now I'm going to toss in the male. So that implies you're not keeping them together on different things.
I'm a group guy. I keep them 90% of the time in groups. Of course, with my the Abigularis, I had a big walk-in cage for those. So it's what I call veranda juggling. When you're feeding them, you're trying to get more to the female, and the male's just he's like, what the hell?
Leave it alone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
You're going like this, back and forth. So when I got rid of my Abigularis, I put my coming eye in that cage, and there ain't no stopping him. He's just a big beast. There's no stopping him. And as soon as he figures out that I'm fattening up the female, he don't go where I want him to go. He stays by the female. So now, it's rough. So I put them back in their original cage, the one cage that has the pass through. So I got a big 5 foot by 5 foot cage where the male is with not a lot of substrate, and the female has the big 8x4, kind of like the Mertens, but instead of water, that whole tub is full of dirt. And I trick him out of there with a rat. He'll go on that side. I close the door. I feed him. I feed the crap out of her. I open the door and I put them back together. But for the most part, they're together all the time.
Okay.
Right on.
Yeah.
And are you doing that from sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, so are you rearing them in groups too, or are you grow them up by themselves to max them out and not get sneaker males and all this different stuff, and then you just have that one excitement of the introduction, and then you move forward with life, or do you raise them in groups too?
I raise them in groups too. Yeah, okay. I got 5 holdback Mertens, and man, you should see these fuckers, man. My male, he's olive green and he's heavily flecked. My females are olive green and very lightly flecked. These holdbacks that I have, they're damn near polka dotted.
Wow.
These 5, oh man, I'm sure they're on the website. I don't know specifically where they would be on there, probably just in the photo section. But man, some of these holdbacks that I have are literally almost polka dotted. Their dots are small, but I'm gonna try to selectively increase that to where I would maybe have something that's almost heavily polka dotted. So that's a goal of mine. It's gonna take time, but I'm trying.
So are you already sizing up where
That's
you're going to
great.
put the next giant Mertens enclosure in your basement? I mean, like, are you gonna? Is that like across the hall is the next one? Like,
Question. That's a separate question. Hold on, before you get there. That's a separate question. Now, when we were in Darwin, in Crocosaurus Cove, they have a Mertens that's like that you're talking about, where you see those really blasted polka dot indicus. It looked just like that. It was bananas. Just that total rose situation.
Yeah, that's pretty much these. When I look at them, sometimes that's the first thing I think of. I'm like, man, that looks like an indicus.
Yeah.
They're really heavily yellow, spotted, not flecked. They're spots, man, and they're not randomly patterned. They're almost in real nice rows. They're beautiful, beautiful animals. But as far as the next big Mertens enclosure goes, no, these 5 raisebacks, these 5 holdbacks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1.2 and then I'll retire my other ones. They've given me so many so many babies and so many eggs. They're still going at it. But when, another year, they're going to take over from there and they'll be retired.
Gotcha.
That's
something
awesome.
like that.
Is that?
No, that's my male.
That's the boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my male.
So it's even more than that.
Yo, you showed one, and that's probably it's a
when you looked at the Mertens, there was that one sitting on a log. It looked like a smaller one. Is that one?
Maybe it's up on the
smaller one sitting on a log, and that's probably the least. Right in the front.
Yeah, that right there, over there on there. Yeah,
that one there is probably the least polka dotted of the 5 I held back.
Wow.
I mean, like, even just look at the baby coming
Looks
out of
like
the
a
egg.
diamond python.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Very
They're
cool.
beautiful. They're beautiful, man.
Okay.
So, Mike, you're hitting on it there, or Owen it got us into this question because I mean that's the other thing that to me is sort of defined monitors, particularly non-dwarf monitors, from the mid-90s. From Frank having success, kind of being the first guy to have some real success with them in the U.S. is the perpetual problem, right? Especially if you're talking even Mertens or bigger. That it's like, how can you as one person, okay, you made 50 of them, right? But how do you keep more without it just being having a warehouse? And and the problem is then maybe at some point down the road you say, oh, well, I'm just going to play with the other stuff. That's not I made 50 of them. What do I care anymore? All this stuff. And then it disappears again. They're so cyclical. Anything, especially the non-dwarf stuff, so cyclical, right? Because it's just such an investment that like it takes someone special like you putting in and doing all this work and then having a plan that says, oh, I'm gonna switch them out with these ones and then consistently keeping holdbacks and doing all that stuff, or they disappear. And that's what's defined the monitors in general for 30 years in the U.S.
Right. Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The only answer I have to that is as much as I love my animals is as much as I love my cages. I think of them as, my masterpieces, my coup de grace. I mean, I'm a concrete finisher, man. I don't have much of a legacy, but my artistic ability with these animals and these habitats, that really, that's part of it for me, a huge part of it. So, I'm not going to put a peach throat in that Mertens cage. I'm not going to put a lace monitor in that cage. That cage is it's specific. It's for Mertens. So as long as I'm making Mertens, I'm going to keep putting them in there until that cage falls apart. And then by the time that cage falls apart, I'm sure I'll have another idea, which I already do. I already do. I mean,
it's already there.
When you go to the mall and you sit in the food area and they got the pond and all the plants and the atrium windows. Yeah. That's what I want one day for my Mertens. I want to be able to sit in there at a little friggin' bistro table, have a cigarette while they're crawling up on me and I'm feeding them quails. That's what I want.
Nice.
Real plants and everything, running water. Yeah. One day I'm working at it.
We all have our dreams, right?
Yeah, that's a good one though. But but I get that where it's like it's much easier for me being a Python guy. I'm like, this one's pretty. I'll put it in this cage, and that's it. Like you can't keep.
Right. I'll put it in
Mertens.
this prefab. I'll put it in this
prefab cage
for a while.
over there.
Actually, into this prefab cage. It's just a whole different thing.
It doesn't matter to me that I keep my male and his 3 sons. Like I can do that. Yeah, you're out of space.
And that's kind of, with that cage, I was thinking, okay, that's specific, man. That's for Mertens. Mm-hmm. So when I built the Glowered Eye cage, I'm like, before I built the Glowered Eye cage, I got a table at not Tinley, it was the St. Louis show. Mm-hmm. So, and Brandon Shiflett, Rare Earth, I went to Tinley and I seen he's got that beautiful Monitor Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that is fucking killer. That I mean, to this day,
I remember that. Yeah,
it's beautiful. But in my head, I'm like, man, I got to do something better. I gotta, and that's saying a lot because that cage is.
That's cool.
Mountain is awesome. So I'm like, man, I got to do something different. And in my head, since I was a kid, I always had, like, I grew up in a town called Franklin Park, real industrial. And they had those blue plastic 55-gallon drums behind the factories everywhere. I'm like, wow, those would make great cages, So in my head, I was just going to cut a square out of it and use the flimsy window plexiglass that would actually mold, and then throw it closed. I'd figure out a way to close it, hinge it, and keep them in there with some water on the bottom or substrate, whatever. And so when I seen his Monitor Mountain, and I was thinking, I got to top that. I got to, if I don't top it, I got to at least come up with something that people may think is as good or whatever. Mm-hmm. So a guy down the street here, he posted whiskey barrels for sale. So I'm like, okay, whiskey barrels, that's better than a blue barrel. So I went and bought a couple whiskey barrels, and I played with my Zoopoxy, and I came up. I don't know if you've seen my table display on the website somewhere. Yeah. So I came up with, I took 2 barrels. I made the one big barrel, and then, of course, this was to sell my baby monitors. So the one was designed for Mertens in mind. The other one was designed, it's like a river, so I was going to put my hatchling Cumming Eye in there. And then the other one was like a quarter barrel, all, cut in half. And I built a beautiful rocky outcropping, and I was going to put my baby Ackies in there. So turns out my Cumming Eye hatch, I got a guy calls me, he goes, okay, he goes, I want your Cumming Eye. I'm like, okay, yeah, told him the price. He goes, no. He goes, I want them all. I'm like, you want them all? He goes, yeah, I want them all. So this guy bought, I don't know, I think it was like 10 or 12. One crack, boom, he bought them all. So I didn't have nothing to bring to the show, so I got these beautiful setups. I got Mertens in all of them. and so, like, now this year, I think I'm going to be a little more better prepared to put individual species in there in those set enclosures.
That's a killer setup. I mean, that's awesome. It's not really a bad thing that you sold out of everything before the show. I mean, can you really complain that much?
I want them all. You get them all. Yeah.
Okay, you want to buy them all? Okay.
when you got the wife sitting there going like this. Okay.
All right. Yeah. No. It's fine.
Can I trade off a few? Yeah, sure. Trade off a few. So
my God.
She gets what she wants. Everybody's happy.
That's right. Very cool.
So one other bit in terms of talking about larger monitors versus smaller monitors is, are you using banks of lights with those bigger, with the Mertens and bigger, rather than a single bulb to try and avoid that central heat spot and getting a burn and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Very important to distribute, heat throughout their whole body, because like you said, if they bask up under just their back and their head is where all the thinking is done, that's still cool. They're going to think, well, I'm not up to temperature yet. So they just sit there and their back burns. They don't really, put that together. Their head's cold, their tail's cold. They want to be warm. So yeah, you have to use, I believe in using a bank of lights, depending on the size of your lizards. Like my 5 foot Cumming Eye, I use I think it's called Fiat is the name of the company. They're halogen flood lamps, 75 watt par 38, which I guess par 38 I just learned is the beam spread or whatever. So I use 2, and for that big animal, it covers his body. He's 5 foot. Now, when I had my Abigularis and the other one, I had a bank of 5 of those. And, that was necessary for them. And when I put my Cumming Eye in there, I cut that back. I turned 2 of them off. So instead of having 5, they had 3. And now that they're back in those other cages, they have 2, and I don't get any burns. But that's very important that you make sure you're, depending on the size of the lizard, you cover a good portion of their body. You don't want them to burn.
Gotcha. This is it's temperature related, but I'm just curious what are the challenges of incubating eggs for like almost a year, and like what are like the tips that you could give, that like what are you looking out for? Has there been any mistakes that you made that you look back and you say I'll never do that again? Those kind of things.
Yeah, like we were talking, happy wife, happy life, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm the kind of guy when I was a kid, if I didn't have money, growing up, but I had animals and I wanted cool cages. I wanted to dress them up. I didn't want just a tank. So if I was driving down the street on my bike and I seen a dresser or a console TV, I'd throw it on my shoulder, get on my bike and bring it home, bust the drawers out of it, put plexiglass on the front and deck it out. And it was beautiful. So I'm a garbage picker. My wife she doesn't want all my garbage, So we're going down the street. This is about 5 years ago. We're going down the street and I see this like a pop, a commercial pop cooler which says,
oh yeah, like a soda, soda fridge. Yeah, okay.
There's my incubator. She's like,
oh yeah,
oh my God, you're gonna pick up junk again. I'm like, yeah, this ain't gonna be.
Yes, I am.
Trust me, But so she said no. We'll buy one. So we bought one that wasn't big enough. It pretty much designed for colubrid eggs, and it was very expensive. And I ruined 2 clutches of coming eye eggs, and they're drying them out with the fan with no, there was no dimmer on it. So, after those 2 clutches went dry, I said, I'm getting rid of this. This thing's going in the garbage, and I'm getting the cooler back in the house. So I got rid of that incubator, and there's a company over here. They refurbish like cooler, those commercial type coolers with the glass. Yeah. And so I called them up. They're like, oh, yeah, $5,000. I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand. I said, I want one before you work on it. I want a broken one.
I want a junk one. Yeah, no.
Yeah, he goes, what are you going to do with a broken one? I said, don't worry about it. How much you want a broken one? So he sells me the broken one. I get it home. I scratch all the Cerveza Fria off of it, and I took out all the guts, the compressor, the that refrigeration thing.
Oh, the Freon and all that fun stuff. Yeah, yeah.
And I put heat tape, flex wide heat tape, all the way down the side, all the way across the bottom, and all the way back up the other side. Keep it nice and warm in there. I don't have to crank it up. Like it had a real small heater in it, so you had to crank it. It was that ABS type board, so it lost a lot of heat. This thing loses nothing. It's very efficient. I made it. It was inexpensive, and people say it all the time. Hey, what's the best incubator to buy? I said, build it. Build it. If you build it, you can build it exactly for what your needs are. It's less expensive. So now I got the fan on there with a dimmer switch, and it barely runs. It's just enough to move the air a little bit. Got it running with a Vivarium Electronics 300 runs the heat tape, and I coated it was white. I didn't want white, so I took like signboard. It's like corrugated cardboard, but it's plastic. I glued that all on the inside, so it was nice, even in black. And then I got one of those, the baker rack, the real heavy that people use them for snake racks. Yep. And I had that custom sized, fits right in there. Take the doors off, it slides right in, and I put all my eggs on the rack. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. I've been living by my I have a Coca-Cola fridge downstairs. It's got a soda bottle as a handle. It's the best incubator I've ever had. Never change it.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the. It's made to hold air, so
the whole point. Yeah,
it's one of the advantages of running a supermarket. I get them all the time. Like,
all the broken fridges. Yeah.
I bet they ain't $5,000 when you get rid of them.
No, hell no.
No,
they're free.
Yeah.
Just
That's funny that you say that, because the other day, like Ralph Polinsky we were talking about,
right?
He's a Python guy. I've known him since high school, and we kind of hooked back up on Facebook after a long time, 20 some odd years. And he's like, hey, can I come and see your monitors? I'm like, are you sure you want to do that, Ralph? He goes, yeah, I want to do that. I'm like, all right, Ralph, come on over. So Ralph comes over. There's like, I don't know, 2 months later, he's got nine monitors. He's got black dragons, coming eyes. He's got a big Emirates. And so there was two. A guy must have had him like in his man cave or a garage or something. And he threw two of the upright Pepsi ones, not the wide one like I got, the
Yeah.
And there was 2 of them, and man, you know how bad that was for me to go past that and not throw it in the back of my truck. I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the store. When I come back, maybe the garbage guy will get it by now, and I don't have to worry about it. It's gone, right? So I come back down the street. Of course, I'm looking. I'm like, there are 2 of them. I'm like, should I get one for Ralph? What should I do? And I kept hearing my wife, quit picking junk. So I left them.
Incubators in the side of the road are never drunk. That is classy. We need that stuff. That is useful tools.
Because I was thinking, okay, so maybe I take them home, I dress them up, I turn them into incubators, and I sell them. Yeah. She don't want the junk in the garage. She don't want the junk on the property.
I've had many fridges at my house, or like mini fridges and stuff with like glass doors break. I gut them and then I sell them online as incubator starter kits. Like it's getting there. Like you got to buy the heat tape.
That's it. Yeah, no, absolutely.
It works.
And it doesn't take much, brain work to do it.
If I can do it, anybody can.
If you can set up a snake rack, you can make your own incubator.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like the idea of you can adjust it, like you said, based off of what you need and what the animal eggs that you're putting in there will need, because it is going to be different depending on what you're breeding. So, do the research and understand what you're trying to get into. So, yeah.
And then, of course, along with that incubator, John Adragna with the sim container, man.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, John's cool.
What a great product, man.
Now, are you putting straight water in the bottom of the sim container? Are you using the sponges? I've
tried it all. At this point, I put water to the fill line because I don't really dick with my eggs. I gotta wait so long. I put them in there. I don't pull them out, and I don't have to worry about water sloshing. I put them in there until they hatch, and I crack the lid to look in there a little bit, and that's it.
Do you have to worry about that's such a long, again, when you were saying 249 days for the one?
262.
262.
Okay. So are you refilling that water? Do you have to worry about, no? It's good.
No.
Okay.
It's I don't know, the best because I'm not super intelligent. It's almost like a convection, you put the water in there, and once it gets set up to I try to match the water with 85 degrees, and that initial water that you put in there, it creates humidity, and as long as you don't open it up, you're not losing anything. It's like a convection,
I swear by them. Yeah, I use them all the time. I think they're great. But
do you have to keep the density down in the egg boxes though? And especially, those Mertens, those are big eggs. Mertens and Coming Eye, those are big eggs. So you're probably not. You don't want to overstuff it, right? Especially as they start to.
Well, with the extra large Sims, I've had my largest clutch of Mertens has been 14 eggs, no problem. They hold
in one of the extra large.
I could probably squeeze another 2 in there. So, but 14 is comfortable.
Awesome. Okay. And then a final question in terms of the young Mertens, and I suppose any of the stuff that you're doing. So much. There have been interesting ideas right out of Glowered Eye that you can sex them based on the ocelot. Sex youngsters, right? Either by transilluminating the tail, or you're, looking at the ocelot and it's got this marking by the eye, or it doesn't have. You seeing any of that stuff with any of the stuff you're working with?
You know what? People say that to me all the time, and I look at them and I question. I have not tried the transillumination yet. I may with my Audatria. So far, what I do is when I get my youngsters, I just raise them up, and so far I've been hitting pretty good. The Pilbarensis came in, and they were obviously 1.2. When I got my original 1.2 Kimberly rocks, the guy tells me they're 1.2. They were literally this friggin' big. They could fit. I lost one because it got out of the tiniest gap. I'm like, there's no way a lizard can fit through there. But the Kimberly rocks have such a unique skull structure that, it may be wide, but it's super flat. If they get their head through there, they're like an octopus. They're gone.
Yeah.
So I learned the hard way with them, but those two turned out to be 1.1, and then I got 3 more from another person that were a little older, and they were 1.2. So I got the 2.3.
Cool.
Awesome.
But yeah, I haven't noticed. I guess the earliest indications that I could tell, like on coming eye and stuff, is more like head and shoulder structure, and then you'll notice the hemipenal bulge when the male matures. So,
Okay.
Awesome.
So everything else like that, everything before that is grasping at straws. Got
it. I give when people want something specific with like my Mertens or whatever, depending on how old they are, I just give my best guess. I've been hitting pretty good, but again, I can't guarantee it because I've had males that I swear they're females, and then I'll go in there the next day and I'm like, where's that little female? And I'm looking around, I'm like, I see that male there. These females, like when they mature, boom, that hemipene is there. The shoulders are there, the neck, the bulbous snout. It's just so obvious, but it's crazy because this change almost seems to happen like in a matter of just a couple of days. So it kind of throws you for a loop when you're like, wait a minute, man.
Where'd you go?
Yeah, where'd you go? And then I'm looking at this male and he's, like Burt Reynolds, he's got his junk hanging out, looking at me like, what's up? So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, it's a crapshoot with the little guys.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're gonna cut off here soon. So I know you wanted to throw out a couple of plugs. So why don't you hit that and we'll get that. Yeah.
Plug. Water filtration.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's for fish, ponds, mini shrimps, these new fats with these micro tanks. Look at Oasi's products. You might pay a little more for them, but trust me, it's well worth the money. It's going to save you in the end. It's a whole lot easier equipment to work with. Everything that you handle and touch and use to clean and manipulate is all blue. So if you need to take the pre-filter out, the valve is blue. The hose settings are blue. The heater port is blue. So it takes all the the guesswork. Oh, is this the import? Is this the outport? It's all labeled. It's all color coded. So Oasi, North America for your fish and water needs. Zoopoxy, if you want to do naturalistic setups, climbable back walls, side walls, water dishes, hide spots, logs, Zoopoxy, pick it up, mix it up, apply it however you're going to do it, texture it, paint it. There's all kinds of videos on how to paint, like the little micro figures, the people who have Star Wars figurines.
Oh yeah, little like game things. Yeah,
people blow me away what they can do with paint. So I started watching it, and there's a technique called dry brushing. You lay a heavy dark base coat that gets in all the grooves, and it gives you your depth. And then you dry brush over the top of that Zoopoxy. It takes a little work. You got to keep going till you get the color you want. But man, you talk about something that looks exactly like a tree branch, a rock, a mushroom. You can make a mushroom look like a real mushroom if you're good. If you're good. So Zoopoxy, Oasi, and that's it. And me. You can you can catch me at Mike's Monitors on Facebook. You can catch me Mike's Monitors on Instagram, mikesmonitors.com, and then just a regular Facebook page, Michael Stefani.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
I can't thank you enough. I feel like we just scratched the surface. I don't even feel
dude.
We got you're gonna have to do a roach show, roach care, roach breeding,
Yeah, I'll have fun.
No problem. No problem. That's all the good stuff. That's fun.
So I'm sure we'll be in touch again. But thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
I thank you guys for the opportunity. Bob, it was nice talking to you after all these years of the old days on the forums and stuff. God bless you guys. It was a great opportunity, and I really appreciate it. I hope to do it again with you guys soon. It was a lot of fun.
100%.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll catch you up at one of those shows when those start up again. We'll see the whiskey barrels with all the different monitors. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one more plug. We got the NARBC going in Schaumburg. That's June 19th and 20th. And then you got the NRBC again in St. Louis, Missouri. That'll be in November. There was one more shout I wanted to do. Misspent youth, man. I'll think of it as soon as we hang up.
Hey, if you think of it, let us know. We'll
US Arc, man. Everybody's going US Arc. We need the support. We need the help. You know, these crazies are coming after us. This cancel culture stuff is for real. They're coming after our reptiles hard. You don't think it ain't going to happen to you, because when they're done with the reptiles, they've already done birds and fish. They're coming after all of it. Next, it's going to be your little pooch and your cat. And then you're going to be saying, I should have listened to the reptile guys and stuck with them. Join US Arc.
Definitely.
I'm making that a commercial, man. That's
like put that at the end of the show every time. Michael just yell at people for one US Arc. It's great.
Oh man,
yeah, record that and cut it in there. It's great.
I mean, you got tons of love in the chat. People are wanting a part 2 already. They're already saying in here part 2.
Man,
now everybody wants monitors. I mean, you know.
Hey, for anybody out there that's thinking about monitors. Yeah, that's it.
Put your hand down. You already got one.
Talk to someone who knows a little bit about monitors. You're going to get bit by that bug, and before you know it, you're going to have a basement full of monitors, and that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Right. Cool. I guess we'll just throw our stuff off and we'll just jump. So for us, just MoreliaPythonRadio.com. You can check it out, the website. Everything that we got going on is over there. If you want to get in touch with us, info at MoreliaPythonRadio.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Morelia Python Radio net or NPR Network. You can follow us on our YouTube page, which you're probably watching this now. If you're listening to the audio version of this, you can go and follow along and see, Mike's amazing enclosures and animals and everything he's got going on, or just go over and check out his website. Links will be in the show description. What am I forgetting, Owen?
You're forgetting stuff. All the shows on the channel.
Oh, yeah. So if you want to listen to all of our different podcasts, I think we need a monitor podcast now. I think that has to happen.
I mean, let's get thing 1 and thing 2 on this. Yeah.
So we got us, Morelia Python Radio. We got Carpet Cliff Notes. We got Colubrid Corner. We got the Student of the Serpent, Carpets and Coffee. What am I forgetting, Owen?
You're forgetting Lucas's one, which is people of herpetoculture.
Humans of herpetoculture.
Humans of herpetoculture, sorry. And then your other one with Nipper.
Oh, yeah, the Field Herping podcast. Hopefully that will be up this weekend. And hopefully, fingers crossed.
So maybe. We'll see.
So check all that out. You can follow myself, EB Morelia, on Instagram and Facebook. Riley's at Riley's Reptiles. Lucas is at Centralian Exotics. Might be Aspidites Exotics at some point. I'm not sure the way that kid's going.
I don't know what's wrong with that poor boy.
Rob, I have to. You're only on Instagram.
Yeah, what's up with that? High Plains Herpetoculture
on there. Yeah, High Plains Herp on Instagram, but that's my favorite bit. It's on Facebook and all too. But
right, okay.
Thanks so much, Mike. This is awesome.
Yeah, Mike.
Hey, do me a favor on Rob and Bob and all you guys. I'm not real, inclined with the internet and stuff. If you could give me send me a link to your page on Instagram.
Yeah.
We could be friends, man.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna punch it up in a second. Yeah.
100%.
Great, man. Look forward to it. Hey, thank you guys again very much.
All right.
Thanks, dude. This was awesome. So
good night, guys. Take care.
You too.
Right. Good night, guys.
All right. See you.
Good night.